And go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. It is with a pleasure that I'll be introducing two of our panelists for our next session, which is Precision Farming, Innovative Technologies, Renewable Energy Solutions. Our two panelists are two phenomenal women that I really think you will enjoy learning about and hearing about the work that they do. Their session will be moderated by Dr. Herb Thompson, who will be sharing a few remarks about himself. But again, I will start by just introducing our speakers for this panel. The first person that I will be introducing is Catherine Marua. She's the founder and CEO of Marua Power. Catherine Marua has been in the power industry for more than 20 years, designing and implementing next-generation power systems for Tennessee Valley Authority, supporting NASA research projects and spearheading microgrid development for military applications. Catherine is the founder and CEO of Marua Power and oversees microgrid development, strategic engagements with private and public energy stakeholders, pushing the boundaries of current technologies to secure a reliable and resilient future through collaborative action. She recently directed the Aguadilla Resiliency Action Challenge in Puerto Rico and has helped create and integrate viable energy solutions for niche power needs and expansive social impact worldwide. So I definitely think you'll be hearing great things from Catherine. And then our second panelist will be Huda El-Assad. She is the CTO of Change Water Labs. Huda has an extensive academic and applied background in the water field. She has professional experience internationally, including Mexico, the Middle East, and Africa, and in various facets of the water industry, including municipal plant operations for wastewater treatment, desalination, and water process engineering. She joined the Department of Mechanical Engineering at MIT in 2012 to work on off-grid wash solutions and is a published author in the fields of environmental public health, water treatment design, maintenance optimization, and field applications. Huda consults in the field of commercial aquaculture, and was named a AAAS Lemelson Invention Ambassador in 2017. So as a quick aside, I've known Huda since 2017 as one of the programs that I manage at AAAS as a project director in the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Department is the AAAS Lemelson Invention Ambassador Program. Another program that I manage is the HBCU Making an Innovation Program, which is how we have been connected to Keith and the IAEOZ Summit. Again, we welcome you to this 1:15 p.m. session, and I truly hope you enjoy the panelists today.
So I am going to be presenting on Change Water Labs. We are a small social enterprise based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we're actually in the business of toilets. So bear with me as we talk through sanitation, and I will link it back to agriculture, I promise. So I hope that you've all eaten lunch at this point, as we're about to talk about human waste. So I'm just going to start with taking into context this girl that's in a refugee camp. And in fact, one of the most dangerous things that she'll do today will be using the communal toilet. She'll probably have to trek about half a kilometer and wait in line to use a shared toilet with 30 to 50 other people, where she risks disease, attack, and even long wait times, which can pose huge health issues. So instead, what her family does is actually hack a sanitation solution by digging a private toilet next to their tent. Unfortunately, in this scenario, their camp sits above a major groundwater source in Jordan, which, with having an unlined pit latrine, can wreak huge havoc for water quality for an already scarce drinking source. So around the world, 4 out of 10 people lack sanitation. Safe toilet in their home even, and poor sanitation can trap people in perpetual poverty, poor health, and pollution. It causes 80% of all infectious diseases, 4% of all deaths globally, and it takes the life of 1 child every 20 seconds. Governments estimate that poor sanitation can cost them 5% of their respective GDPs. That's $260 billion per year that we're flushing down the toilet. A lack of toilet is also accelerating climate change. Raw and collected sewage contributes to 4% of all man-made methane emissions. However, it's not trivial to put a toilet in each and every home. A lot of people largely live in homes without sewage plumbing. And when you can't flush, things get messy really fast, and collecting unflushed sewage can be extremely costly. So these communities are drowning in 4 billion liters of sewage accumulations every day. If you could think of one intervention that can solve a multitude of problems, toilets could be it. It's also a problem in extremely wealthy countries as well. Sewage management is a messy, expensive business. For example, Dubai doesn't have enough sewage pipes, so they rely on these poop caravans, which essentially take sewage from the city to a nearby treatment plant. In the US and Fort Lauderdale, in recent years, burst pipes flooded neighborhoods with raw sewage. And now the city pays $2 million per week to collect sewage by truck to relieve the strain on these aging pipes. Climate change makes it even worse. So flooding from severe weather and sea level rise makes it impossible to dig below the surface to implement sanitation solutions. Climate refugees, which are essentially people that have to leave their usual homes and migrate to other areas due to heat, drought, or other climate-related issues, bring in extra strain to new host areas, which likely can't accommodate or manage the extra generated sewage. So by 2030, 5 billion people won't be able to flush because they lack either toilets or pipes. And the only solution available won't get us to the goal of a safe toilet for every person. If everyone were to have a flush toilet, not only would that require billions of dollars and decades to build out sewerage piping infrastructure, we would literally be using all of our clean water just to flush. And if instead we decide to truck everyone's sewage, not only would that triple the cost of getting rid of the sewage, to overflushing, the fuel emissions and the increased traffic on the roads would be a complete nightmare. So clearly we need a new way to flush, one that doesn't use water or emit carbon. So what we propose is essentially to shrink it. And here's how. Sewage is mostly water, about 95%. So instead of flushing it, we vaporize it. We've developed a low-cost membrane that evaporates sewage fast without needing external heat or energy. It's basically shrink wrap for crap. This demo shows our membranes, tubes of our membranes that are filled with liquid. Don't worry, it's just coffee and synthetic urine. That shows the membrane evaporating the liquid fast on its own. And using this technology, we've developed the iThrone, which is a portable waterless toilet that evaporates daily sewage. It uses a pouch of our membrane to collect the household sewage and then quickly evaporates it on site. It converts the sewage into clean water vapor, and so that all that's left on the inside is dried solids that are safely contained. We don't add any chemicals, which makes the pouch easier and safer to handle, and there's no need for hookups to power or plumbing. So we can keep things clean, reduce odor, and install it everywhere. So compared to other sanitation solutions that are out there, container-based toilets at its simplest form is essentially just a box which collects waste. This could be hugely messy, they fill up fast, and it's a huge logistical nightmare to empty out everyone's container-based toilet and bring it to a central facility for processing. Toilets are actually great if you have the space and the time for them. So in a place such as a dense urban area, a composting toilet would actually be very difficult to implement. Reinvented toilets can be too pricey, especially for those that need it most, which makes solutions like the iThrone able to provide fast sewage elimination at lower costs for much more people. It is a big, big industry. Governments and NGOs spend at least $73 billion per year on sanitation. And the urban sewage removals market is potentially $5 billion per year. And this is what I'm going to be focusing more so on as far as our solution and our link to agriculture. So in urban communities where we don't have any sewage pipes, the only other option is to rely on fecal sludge management services. These are sewage servicers that go from home to home, collect household waste or community-based waste, and brings it back to a central facility. So currently the container-based toilets that they deploy require servicing every 1 to 2 days, and this imposes huge logistic costs and severely constrains their servicing capacity. So by shrinking daily sewage on site, instead of those service companies having to serve a small amount of toilets daily, they can now serve a larger amount of toilets monthly. So this can completely transform their servicing economics, slash their OPEX costs by about 50%. And by doing that, we can increase their capacity to serve more people and thus increase availability of safe sanitation to more people. So access to safe sanitation can have massive impacts on a community's health, safety, and environment. And the impact on women and girls is extremely dire in particular. Most girls that are around 12 or 13, once they reach the age of puberty, are likely to drop out of school because of a lack of safe sanitation. And this can subject her to a future of poverty and dependency. So with support of the Humanitarian Grand Challenges, we actually deployed our first set of toilets in Uganda, in Chiboga. And this is where we started to really explore the links between sanitation and agriculture. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we started with a toilet and eventually formed a partnership with the Department of Agriculture and Forestry in the Chiboga local government. So this is a schematic by the Toilet Board Coalition, and it's bringing up this concept of the circular economy, which essentially asks the question of what happens next. Not only does waste reuse help ensure environmental sustainability, it can also ensure economic sustainability as well. As soon as we dump the waste or bury it, we lose that potential to convert the waste into a higher value product. So converting the waste can subsidize the cost of collection as well, which can also make sanitation more accessible to even more people. Waste can be converted for agricultural purposes, energy, forestry applications, and it really is becoming a huge topic matter in sanitation and broader economies in general. So luckily in Uganda, there is already a welcoming attitude in developing these circular economies. They're already using urine, which has a nutrient-rich profile and can add to soil fertility as a fertilizer. And scientists find that it's a first-rate source of nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, other elements that are vital for plant health. Utilizing human waste is obviously cheaper, it's local, and of course it's available. And our toilets can fit this model because we don't add any toxic chemicals to the process. And in fact, we've already started drying the waste, which is a typical starting process for conversion for most conversion processes. So our concept for the conversion of our waste collected at the Chiboga Hospital is essentially to have the Department of Agriculture separate the waste, test the urine for quality and safety, which are now concentrated because they've been evaporated. And feces are deposited into our solar oven or compost bin. Local farmers are then provided the salts as a fertilizer additive for higher yields and productivity. And the Department of Forestry can access manure for artificial forests and commercial stock. In Chiboga, what you find is there are quite a few livestock herding communities as well as farmers. And one of the biggest costs for these farmers is the transportation of dung for fertilizer. So what we're proposing with the Department of Agriculture is have the animal waste dried in our solar oven toilet system. Dung is sold and transported in the dry season so that farmers can pay for local dung for fertilizer, and lower cost for fertilizer for farmers and income potential for livestock herders is what we can achieve. So from one toilet, you end up with a huge potential for social impact. Women and children at the hospital have better access to sanitation. You have an expansion of safe sanitation to the community. Local farmers are able to increase yield at lower cost for fertilizer and nutrient additives. Local livestock herders are given the opportunity to capitalize on existing waste streams for additional income. And artificial forestry initiatives can provide more sustainable value products such as timber for construction and fuel for cooking for local communities while protecting local woodlands. So really this concept of the circular economy is to get people to start thinking that agriculture isn't its own sector. It's a very holistic way to view how waste and water and energy and agriculture and food security are all really linked in this circular economy that we live in. So we believe that safe toilet access is a basic human right, and we thank you for listening and supporting our vision.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Morua, and I'm the founder and CEO of Morua Power, also an ambassador for IEEE Smart Villages. And today's presentation is on equitable, sustainable, resilient communities. That's the work that we've been involved in from the very beginning. And let's see if I can show you this quickly, make sure you can see my screen. Great. So Morua Power is a woman-owned energy solutions provider. I actually was born in Colombia, so I know that we've been talking a lot about diversity and inclusivity. And though I'm from Colombia, I am from Earth. And I like to ask the question, I am from Earth, where are you from? And I think we all can agree that any problems that we're facing, the solution is really global, and it's something that we have to do together. And so under that premise, we've identified 3 key pillars that have really been instrumental in how we approach the solutions to the problems that we're seeing. So one of them is electrification and using it as a vehicle for resilience and economic opportunity. The second is education, so providing the vocational training, whether that's helping people understand the electrification aspect of it, and also entrepreneurship to be able to create jobs and businesses that support the communities as a result of the electrification efforts. So we have 3 really strong case studies. The one that I'm going to talk about mostly is in Africa. I was a part of a Puerto Rico resiliency initiative where we were able to work with the communities to understand what they needed from an electricity standpoint. Of course, that ties back to agriculture as well. And the US as well worked in communities, hub zone communities that really needed help to understand how to move from their initiative in education, but add electrification to it to really empower the community and take them to the next level. So our mission is to develop infrastructural resilience for communities in need and achieve a sustainable and equitable world. And what we've seen through electrification is exactly that, that we're able to really impact socioeconomically all the communities that we are in contact with. So underdeveloped communities lack electricity, education, and income generating opportunities. An example of this is in Cameroon. 35% is the electrification percentage in rural areas. There's no electricity, that means no running water, no formalized education, and no access to agricultural markets, when it's a lot of times the only thing they can depend on for income generation. And so one of the companies that we worked with in Cameroon is REI, and this is also in my ambassadorship with IEEE Smart Villages. They have a product that they developed called Sunblazer, and it has solar panels, inverters, batteries. It has parts availability, which is really important when you're in very remote areas, and it includes resilient measures, which includes controls. The other important thing to consider when it comes to electrification in rural areas is that it can be manufactured regionally, so they have access to parts, that it can be transported, and installation can be ready in a relatively short amount of time. So this system in particular is an all-in-one system that includes the solar panels, a frame that holds it, and then also the controls. And you'll see that really quickly you can open this reinforced steel container that has a lock to be able to access all of the controls, the inverters, the batteries, and really see what's available. And there's a lot of different configurations of the system. This is just one of them. So the second aspect, so we talked about electrification and then education. Once you have electricity, you're able to provide opportunity for education, which again creates jobs, skill development, and it provides training to help them really communicate well and market their skills. And the third element that we talked about with entrepreneurship, there's a digital marketplace that can become available as a result of connecting digital devices, and then hydroponic solutions is an example of what can also be added to the entrepreneurship aspect of it, and products and services. So perhaps before, sewing wasn't necessarily something you could make money doing, but with electricity available, it really changes the game for a lot of people. And so all of this is possible, and I know that throughout today's sessions, this has been talked about a lot. Our main central point is that it has to be good for all. It has to be good for people, it has to be good for our partners, it has to be good for the environment. And so with being good for all at the center of everything, we can look at public and private partnerships that are innovative. We can look at potential grants and services that are able to help at the end of the day really empower the communities and help them build a better future. So these are some examples of partnerships for some of these projects. I talked about IEEE Smart Village, USTDA, NREL, Simplify, and Quinley, which is actually a conscious dance network, we're also partnered with to be able to create these initiatives. I don't know if you guys can see that. Something happened to my, oh, here we go. All right. And so as a result of all of these different components coming together, we're able to provide electricity to 238 low-income families, 70 businesses, and 293 middle-income families. This is just the beginning. So we will be moving forward in partnership with other partners that you saw in the previous slide to be able to provide the scalability that they need. So in our partnership with our REI Cameroon partner, what we did is we worked to help scale what they already had. And what I saw happen in this type of scenario is that it was able to create even more leverage to their initiatives and to scale not only in Cameroon, but to other countries as well. And this is just one example of many more that are available. And also, this is a perfect example of what can be done in the United States when we work together for the good of all. So this is really the blueprint of the future. We see clean energy, community engagement, education, and entrepreneurship working hand in hand. And specifically for an equitable future for all. One of the things that we're working on through Power a Nation and Adopt a Village initiative is to help continue to scale those efforts in Cameroon, starting there. And then also working on hydroponic farming and off-grid housing, and I'll share a couple of slides on that. As well as founded a Conscious Leaders Network where we're helping to teach, we're learning from each other, and we're also helping to profit together. So this particular, this is the biome. Just wanted to say a little bit about this. So essentially it can be used as affordable housing. It looks really great, but also it requires, it's a true zero carbon emissions, which surpasses the existing net zero standards. It completely off grid, and we're able to also add hydroponic farming along to the enclosure, and it has durable materials. So we're using recyclables, making sure that everything will benefit Earth and that we can continue to be sustainable. One of the main features we're calling the water board is also allowing us to be completely off-grid. It is disaster proof. It can withstand Category 5 hurricanes we're starting off in a project in Florida, and then we're also looking at a project in Michigan, and there's a couple others that are lined up that really want to use our modular approach to these housing enclosures. Everything is able to be monitored, so that's a really great plus. It keeps track of everything that's being consumed, used, and what's available to make sure that we are ready for any potential threats. So that includes everything from hydroponic systems, EV charging, pools for those that want to develop communities using these, and then furniture packages that are completely sustainable, recyclable, as well as art. So we're partnering with a lot of different businesses to be able to make this a reality. And the other item that I mentioned with Light at Home is in Adopting a Village. This is through our partnership with Quimly, and we're working across the globe with different companies to be able to help scale all of the electrification, education, and entrepreneurship efforts. And that's pretty much wraps it up. Again, everything kind of ties back in. It is a circular economy, and we all have to work together with how we use our resources and partner with each other to really make huge shifts in the world.
I just want to say, first of all, both of those presentations were amazing, ladies. We truly thank you for sharing the work that you all are doing. We did have this is more of a generic question, but one of our attendees really was interested in both of the presentations and was wondering if these are public, if these could be shared.
Yeah. Yes, there will be digital copies of the presentations after in the next couple of days, so where they can log in the site and see each one of the presentations.
Perfect. So I just want to get into a couple of moderated questions. We have about 20 minutes. Not sure if we need that full amount of time, but just wanted to follow up with both Huda and Catherine, specifically about the work that you both both of you are doing internationally. I loved Catherine's comment that the work that she is doing is good for all, and I think that can be applied to the work that you do, Huda, as well. And so I was wondering, since this summit is specific to the United States, specifically rural farming agricultural areas, do you see the work that the two of you are doing as something that can be applied in the United States? I know, Catherine, you said that that was, part of the next steps is that, that's something that you could do in the US, but just wanted to get some remarks from the two of you. If you see your current work benefiting the United States, specifically our rural areas, our farming areas in the US. And either one of you can start with the reply.
Sure. Yeah. So this is Catherine. What I've seen so far is that our work overseas has really helped us understand what's required from a very fundamental level to rebuild in a way that really makes sense and builds an economy that we really want with our people. And so being able to do that and then coming to the US to really build that through the partnerships that we've heard through either Department of Energy, USTDA, USDA, it gives us there's a lot of practice, right? And there's a lot of hours that went into building something overseas through the help of the funding that was available for those opportunities. And so now it's really just aligning with the opportunities available here in the US to be able to replicate the same models that we know have worked in places where there's even less infrastructure. So it really gives it a good proof of concept that can then be applied to a more structured location.
Thanks so much. And Huda, do you have some comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge need for more innovations in domestic technologies, and we haven't focused much in domestic technologies just yet. Every country is very specific as far as their cultural context, their regulatory context, and this has a big implication, especially for waste management and energy and water. Different regulatory bodies really have different standards that we would have to accommodate and really tailor the technology to that. There is a huge need here, as we've already seen, for more resilient off-grid technologies. No one is immune to the effects of climate change, unfortunately. And we, as being technology makers in the U.S., really have to be aware that promoting more climate resilient technology should really be a huge focus going forward.
Thank you so much for that information. And so just to our audience, just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can ask them in our Q&A box, and we'll be sure to have our presenters receive your questions. I do have another question. This is one of the guiding questions we kind of had discussed prior to this call. And this one is, what are the biggest challenges for communities to adopt these sanitation economy frameworks? Huda, would you like to start with that?
Sure. So like we were just saying, every country is very specific, and regulation is one of those very, very country specific themes that you're going to have to take into account when you're trying to deploy globally. For example, where we are in Uganda, they have a very, very open, innovative appetite for new technologies and new innovative schemes to try out. Whereas in countries like in Turkey, where we've already engaged with partners, they're very, very strict guidelines as far as you being able to reuse human waste in any capacity. So that's something that's really, it's definitely come more of a forefront thought in our process for deployment abroad. The other thing is also culturally and just psychologically, there's a huge psychological barrier in getting people to accept that you can actually reuse human waste for a higher value product, and it's not an easy one to break through. So it takes a lot of education, a lot of public health knowledge, a lot of safety and testing that can be made available to the public so that they can feel more secure, and really trying to overcome those more mental barriers to introducing that kind of technology.
Absolutely. I know that was, shrink wrap for crap has always been the motto that Change Water Labs kind of came up with, and it helped us grasp, the concept when you were a part of the Invention Ambassador program. But there's definitely a mental stigma attached with that, so I completely understand. Catherine, do you have any response to that question that was posed?
Yeah, I did want to tag on to the education aspect.
Right.
One of the reasons why we're really focusing on controls and monitoring for the biome shelters is because people need to understand what's really happening and how their everyday use is affecting their own internal ecosystem, but it also helps to understand what's happening. For example, we also have a completely closed loop water system. So there's a stigma around, well, what does that really mean, right? And so being able to be really open and transparent around what that is, how it works, and allowing people to see it using technology to be able to track all of this and understand the science behind it for those that are just interested in having a home. So education is really important.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Another question we have is, what is the best way to teach people to see the links in these different sectors?
So I think, in talking to Keith a little bit earlier this week, he was telling me about some of the programs they have around, school children and agricultural farming, learning techniques applied. And I really do believe that really is the best way to start teaching people is more hands-on, showing them the entire process and the entire linkages between, their efforts working with, food and water and the energy that it needs. So I think applied learning, and especially starting young, is really the best way to start engaging communities to really accept these technologies and processes.
And with you, this is Melvin, when you're bringing up new technology for farming, I'm actually working with a nonprofit. They concentrate on data analytics, open data, and AI for agriculture, which is huge. Not only just the agriculture itself, but droning, anything dealing with technology and agriculture. This is a new industry for kids. The issue is that it's tough for them to discover the opportunities, and that's why these panels are good, and we have to move them into the schools itself. But right now, their particular camp, they're doing high school kids, and there's 2-week camp, they're on campus, and they're actually doing data analytics on agriculture, which is very nice. So there are many programs building at this particular point. There's another young lady who's actually, her company is Women in Drones, where she trains drone pilots starting at age 6. And you can get certified and start working at age 16. So yes, there are many opportunities, and we just have to get the word out on those particular opportunities.
Melvin, I have a question.
Sure.
For the panelists. First of all, just a tremendous eye-opening exposure to the globe and the needs of the globe that are so basic, essential, and fundamental to life. I liken it to our trek to become, create habitation on Mars. And when we first heard about that, prior to Hidden Figures coming on the screen, I began to think about the supply chain that's needed to get from here, planet Earth, to Mars, and all of the commerce exchange. What this conversation with Huda and Catherine have sort of been about, and hopefully opened up for the audience, was how important it is to recognize our ability to do what we do here, that we take for granted, that is something, again, deprived in other parts of the country, I should say the world, that we have the ability to transfer our talents. So the question, knowing that federal government is sort of the backbone of opportunity, where it creates funding and it is mission driven, I look at USAID, and Catherine and Huda, I'm sure very much so you have some degree of connection to those agencies and the funding sources that they bring about. But I've noticed that they focus much on health, and in order to get good health, you have to have some of these water infrastructure, sanitation issues dealt with first to get to a place of having balanced health protection, right? I hope you would agree with that. With that being said, here's the question, what is your experience with USAID? What's the availability, access, ease of it for both of your small business women-owned companies, of which I'm very proud of, to say offer so much to the globe?
All right, I can start. So USAID has been a really great ally in terms of education and helping us understand as a business the opportunities that are available. Our first, where we're at now is with TDA, and that's who we've partnered with for our next project. But there's definitely opportunity. I can speak as a small woman-owned business that there's plenty of opportunity with USAID, but I think there's a lot of products and services and frameworks that we've been able to build first that then we can bring to the table to partner with either large companies, medium-sized, or even academic institutions to then go after some of the USAID opportunities. So that's how we've approached it. I know there's companies that have approached USAID from the very beginning. I know that through my IEEE ambassadorship, there's been really close ties with USAID, but that's the way that we've approached it.
Thank you for that. Is that Huda?
Yeah, so we haven't had too much direct engagement or support with USAID as of yet. it's kind of interesting because most of the support for field projects that we've gotten so far have come from the Humanitarian Grand Challenges, which was administered by Canada and funded by DFID, the UK aid agency, which funded our critical pilot work in Uganda. And we also had support from UNDP and the Gates Foundation and the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's kind of an interesting patchwork of very global supporters, which really just emphasizes how global this problem is. And, you know, a lot of different governments are really seeing that the cost of sanitation is remarkable, and it's something that, you know, needs to be addressed. So we are looking forward to engaging more with the USAID. And actually, one of the great things about being involved with NELA's program at the IAEOZ is that, you know, there really is a great introduction into more domestic government supporting agencies and opening up the door to those agencies, which can be, you know, a little bit hard to get into, you know, if you're starting from scratch. So it's hugely helpful.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate both of the sort of two ends of the pillar of those, the answer to that question. And I don't know, Melvin, how we're on time at 2:04. I just think that there's runways of opportunity, and clearly our partnership with IAEOZ, of which we're humbled and thankful for, such a think tank organization that's advocate on a global level for science to, you know, now move forward beyond over the next 5 years and work on a global front. I'm also happy to use this opportunity to announce and say hello. I got to look at my clock to see what time it is in South Africa, but there is a gentleman by the name of Timothy Maurice Webster who is following and taking copious recorded notes in some measures, because he will be leading our What Works in the World podcast over the next 5 years. And I'm excited about his worldly global view and his impact that he's already made in South Africa over the last 10 years. And I just think the future looks bright for the summit partners and our community here when we think about bridging the gaps of information and education, taking public policy to a whole nother level of application, and using innovation to be our foundational premise to transform the culture so that we can advance all people, right? All nations. And I'm so excited, and thank you so much. I'm pretty much standing in the stead of Dr. Herb Thompson. I do not necessarily look like him, but that's okay. That's him. He is also a CEO of Ken Consulting Incorporated, an 8A firm, is working with MBDA under a new contract to actually increase the number of minority students who have a global footprint in the diaspora. So this conversation is timely, applicable, and the future, again, I believe looks bright. Let me just say a grand degree of gratitude for Kamal Saidi from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, as well as Robin Pate. You just amazed us with your full research lab, and your CEO should be proud. I know he is proud, and he will say that, I'm sure, this afternoon by the presentation alone. And thank you so much for bridging an application understanding with agriculture. Jose Nino from the El Nino Group. That's Jose Nino. That's all I can say. He has accomplished so many things for the Latin American community. Has helped us to bridge a partnership with Hispanics in energy, and agriculture, energy, sanitation, and infrastructure, I believe, has a new avenue of opportunity to grow and to have people live quality lives because of people like yourself. And so I'm excited for our next steps. I think, Melvin, I should probably turn that the mantle back over to you. According to our schedule, we are moving into a break that I would like to invite all of our audience, encourage, and tell somebody else to come on, because hopefully Mel, unless I'm speaking out of turn, will show many videos of what is to come, what we have in place. I'm excited about introducing David Bird, the National Director of the Minority Business Development Agency, as well as having a panel with young people who have been listening, fully engaged. You think you all have impressed each other by the knowledge, information, and life experiences that you have. I think you'll be able to sit back on this panel and see what the future looks like, what STEM looks like, full steam ahead with young people and their creativity and innovation. So I'm with no, as they say in church, if our hearts and minds are clear, Melvin, I'll turn it back over to close us into transition about 3 minutes earlier than scheduled. Neela White, thank you so much for not only your partnership with Iris and at AAAS, your passion for creating an ecosystem of color and colorful innovation where our society can truly embrace the concept that you can't have innovation without diversity. Thank you so much for the 250,000 students who've knocked on your door of interest to participate in your many conferences and challenge competitions, science and technology and engineering competitions. So thank you again for hosting and introducing and moderating this panel.